Good evening. It's time for Real Talk Elgin with your host, Heather Keller of the Keller Group of KW Inspire. Heather is a leader in real estate sales and a foreclosure specialist with over 13 years experience. Real Talk Elgin is your place to get the latest information about the newest trends in real estate. Learn about the industry and ask any questions you may have for Heather. Join Heather live in Studio 14 in downtown Elgin by calling 847-931-1410. That number again is 847-931-1410. And now, Real Talk Elgin with Heather Keller.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. It is Tuesday, and I am your host of Real Talk Elgin, Heather Keller, licensed real estate broker with Keller Williams Inspire here in Elgin. And I am here again on Tuesday. I love being here on Tuesdays to provide you with real-time accurate information of all things real estate. So we have a new topic today. I'm excited to talk about that. But first, I always start my show off with jumping outside your comfort zone. And I say that because here I am, season 2, episode 13. Wow, 13 already. So we're like more than halfway through the year. Anyways, I started this show back during the pandemic, April of 2020, and I jumped outside of my comfort zone to start this show because I know that there's a lot of people out there that really don't know where to turn when it comes to real estate, whether you're going through a divorce or need to sell or facing foreclosure or have tenant issues. And so here we are, and I'm hoping that by having this show, it gets the word out all over Chicagoland and maybe even nationwide. Tune in. You can call in 847-931-1410 and ask us any question throughout the show. Maybe you heard something over the summer or anything that we talk about tonight. So yeah, go outside your comfort zone. It definitely will pay back in strides, right? Okay, so like our Facebook page, Real Talk Elgin, you can listen to any past shows we have, realtalkelgin.com. Later on in the show, we'll talk about how you can get a free copy of my book, The Complete Guide to Selling Your Home as a Short Sale, and also the upcoming shows we have for 2021. So let's talk about today's show. We're going to talk about divorce and real estate, something we have not done yet, and I know it's a pretty big topic. So I have asked Laura Baldwin to come in and talk with me about that. She is an attorney here locally. I think they're headquartered in Naperville, correct? Yes. STG Law. Are you in the St. Charles location?
We're primarily in Naperville, but we have offices in St. Charles, Park Ridge, and Chicago. Okay, great.
Yeah. So she is a divorce attorney, and I know this is a touchy subject, so that's why we wanted to bring her on. I've worked with her. I like how she works. I like STG Law, and so here we are. So I brought her on. Hopefully, if you have any questions, you can call in 847-931-1410. So without further ado, why don't you tell the viewers a little bit about yourself? And I appreciate you being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
I know this is something we've talked about for a while. So Laura just had a baby, 3 months ago?
Yes.
Congratulations.
So we didn't want her to come during she was pregnant. You know, we're trying to be cautious with COVID. And so I was like, okay, let's plan it for August. And I'm thinking, gosh, August is so far away, but here we are. So anyways,
so thank you for having me.
Thank you.
So I am the attorney director and a partner at STG Divorce Law. Our firm is dedicated solely to the practice of divorce and family law. We practice throughout Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. As I said, we have offices in Naperville, St. Charles, Park Ridge, and Chicago. I live in Park Ridge with my family, and after coming back from maternity leave last week, this is a fun way to start work again.
Yeah, that is, right?
Yeah.
Dive right in.
Right.
So are you sleeping at night?
Here and there, yes.
Okay.
Not as much as I'd like to be, but
I remember those
we'll get
days.
there.
But it goes by super fast.
Yeah.
So just enjoy it. That's my best advice.
For sure.
Okay. So how long have you been practicing?
Just over 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And we not only do litigation, but I'm also a trained mediator and collaborative attorney.
So what is a mediator? I guess we could, what does that mean exactly?
Sure. So a mediator is a neutral third party that it's one of the approaches you can do to a divorce. So a couple would choose to go through the mediation process. They'd meet with the mediator, who's the neutral third party, who helps to facilitate conversation and help the parties see if they can reach an agreement. So rather than acting as the attorney and an advocate, you're instead acting as a neutral facilitator, so to speak.
It's actually quite cost effective compared
Yes.
to hiring attorneys per side.
It absolutely can be. And first of all, you're only paying for one person, the mediator, to sit there, and they can't give you legal advice, but they're very typically attorneys who know the system, who know the options, and can help formulate solutions for you.
Yeah, so right before we came on air, you said there was, and I know we're going to talk about real estate and how it and divorce together, but you said there was a couple different ways you can go about divorce. I think that was where your word.
Yeah,
So
yeah, definitely.
mediation must be one.
So mediation is one of them.
Okay.
Another approach is just the traditional litigation route, which is where one party goes ahead and files a petition with the court, opens the case in the court, each party gets an attorney, and you go through the litigation process. There's more formal exchange of financial documents, court appearances, and it can start to get really expensive. You can, of course, settle out of court anytime, but once you're in the court process, that's where the costs start to increase. So people start to look for alternatives, alternative dispute resolution, mediation, and the other thing I mentioned was collaborative law. And that is a process where both attorneys hire a collaboratively trained attorney, and they sign an agreement where they then agree to participate in a series of settlement conferences between the lawyers and the parties, all outside of court.
Okay.
And they sit through these series of settlement conferences in order to reach a settlement agreement.
So
and that's
which
all
is
done
more
outside of
common
court.
now? Because I actually didn't really know. Like, I've done a lot of real estate where there's divorce involved in it. It's very tricky. Sometimes we have to deal with them separately. But I don't think I knew really about the other options.
Oh, absolutely. So I would still say traditional litigation is the most popular, so to speak. Not popular in the sense that it's the best for everybody, but it's just what everyone knows about.
Okay.
You hear about a divorce and you picture them going to court and going in front of a judge.
One on one side, one on the other side, and
exactly. So, but the alternative dispute resolution methods are getting much more popular. The Collaborative Law Institute is gaining much more popularity, and you actually go through formal training as a collaborative attorney. You have to be a mediator. You have to go through the mediation certification process, and then you can do the collaborative training. And the collaborative training essentially helps you focus on gaining solutions for the parties. So rather, it's not as much an adversarial process, but more so that the attorneys and the parties are coming together to see if they can all reach an agreement.
Got it.
Yeah, it's cool.
much like the weather we have outside. Sometimes
know,
it just
sorry,
sits
I
up and we
keep
never really know what's
looking over
going
there
on
and I'm
outside.
like,
Gosh, I didn't even notice.
Yeah, it got
So the
really
window's
dark.
behind me.
Yes.
Well, and that's what happens in divorce. It gets a little dark
Yeah,
sometimes.
It does get a little dark, yes. All right, so I always have my guests kind of come up with like a set of questions so we can have a conversation about them. So let's just dive in. So how is real estate dealt with when it comes to a divorce?
So real estate, we look to see what the parties' marital assets are. So any real estate that they acquired during the marriage, whether it be their house, whether it be an investment property, that is looked at as their overall marital estate. And then, the parties need to decide if one party is going to keep the piece of real estate and buy the other party out, or if they're going to sell the piece of real estate and then divide the proceeds.
Okay. So I've seen it a couple different ways. So I guess my question, because I do a lot of short sales. So sometimes, like I have a case right now where their divorce, technically he's still on the mortgage, but there was a quitclaim deed filed. And then the divorce decree gives her direction to keep the house. So I've done it where that other spouse doesn't have to be involved with the process.
Oh, okay.
But, we have to show the banks all that, which gets a little tricky. So
and I was going to say they would want to make sure it's spelled out in their divorce decree exactly how
so we
they're
have to
going do
review
it.
that ahead of time, and we have to send the divorce decree to the bank along with the quitclaim deed and show that she is able to do everything and not deal with him.
Right.
So,
and actually, that brings me to a question for you: does a short sale affect, if both parties are on the mortgage, both of their credit?
So that's a good question. I really do think it does. So it's still going to be beneficial to do the short sale regardless. Now I have another divorce case coming up this weekend where they are right in the middle of the divorce, and so they both have to cooperate to get the short sale complete. And they're on board, and they're amicable. Is that word correct? Yes.
Yes.
To meet together, so I'm meeting them together. But there's a lot of times where I do have to meet them separately. But so for when it comes to the divorce, if they have the house or an investment, is it common where a lot of people can buy them out? That means they have to go through a refinance, correct, to get them off the title? I mean, to get them off the market.
Yeah, and yes, exactly. So if one spouse is going to keep the house, the other, and both are on the mortgage, 99% of the time that spouse who's keeping the house is required to refinance to remove the other party's name from the mortgage. And then to buy the party out, they can either take cash out from the refinance, or they can offset with another asset.
Okay.
So, if the equity is 20 grand, so to speak, they could take 10 grand from another asset and give it to that party. Or you can just take some cash out from the refinance and pay the other party.
What about, what if they can't do that? So then they're required, is there a court order to sell it, or how does that work? What if
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, so if they either can't afford to buy the other party out, or there are no assets to offset, or somebody's not going to qualify for a refinance, then yes, and the court will order the house sold. So same as if the parties are going through a divorce, and let's say they both say they want the house, then
Then what happens?
then you can't reach an agreement, and the court is left most
Telling you to
likely
sell
to
it.
say, then I'm going to just order the house sold.
So I have a question for you. So I've had a lot of divorce cases where there was an order or in the divorce decree or something along those lines where one of the spouses had to refinance and take them off. Well, they never did because they couldn't. So here we are years later, and now they're in a bad financial
They couldn't because they
state.
couldn't qualify to refinance.
Yeah,
That's
a
what it
lot
was.
of people can't. I mean, sometimes
Especially
to get
now.
a mortgage, you have two incomes.
No, exactly.
So then for someone to have to come in, if you get a divorce and you want to keep the house, then you have to refi and get that other. That's the only way to get that other spouse off is to complete a refinance.
Right. Or do an assumption of mortgage, which isn't always
Yeah.
a possibility for them. So what we typically do, and what you want to make sure you do in your divorce decrees, if you're having somebody refinance, is put in language that if they don't qualify to refinance, or they don't do it within a certain period of time, 90 days, 120 days, 6 months if they want, or 12 months even, I've seen.
Yeah.
Then the house will be sold. So basically, you would build it in that in the event they plan to refinance, but in the event they can't, then they're going to have to just sell the house.
I have another question for you that comes up sometimes. So if they are required to sell, then how does the court or the attorney go about choosing a realtor? Because from my understanding, it cannot be chosen by one of the spouses, correct?
Hence, it would favor one of the clients. Is that way?
I don't know. That's what I'm wondering, because the conversation, I guess short sales and traditional sales are a little bit different, but the conversation I had with my clients that are coming up, condo here in Evanston, I'm going to, he was like, well, how did you get in touch with her? And, didn't necessarily like me at first, and then I explained everything to him and it was fine. But
So they're going through a divorce. And
they're
they
going through a
agreed to
divorce.
use you.
They're agreeing to use
Okay.
me, yeah. If they agree, I think it's fine.
Yes.
But how does that, does the court then appoint a realtor to do that?
So if they can't agree on a realtor, there's a number of different ways you could do it. You could have the two attorneys each suggest a realtor.
Okay.
Or exchange a name of 3 realtors, and the parties will pick one of them. Or you can just, have the court decide. And,
Okay.
I've had that where I've asked judges, maybe even in an area where I'm not so familiar with realtors out there. So, and I know a judge is relatively local, and they'll say, well, I saw this person work on this case, so, why don't they use this realtor?
That's the start of a bad lineup. They can't even agree on a realtor.
Well,
It's not a good divorce
I know,
situation.
right?
You
Yeah.
can't even figure that out.
it's
Yeah.
a relative-
I mean, I always, I stress to that, I'm very neutral. I'm here, I'm very passionate about helping families move on to the next chapter, whether it is the short sale situation or a divorce situation where they have to get out and sell. I'm very neutral. Like, if you want me to sit with you separately, then I will. But, you know, it's just kind of a part of the job. Like,
Right.
you would think.
So if somebody does that, then do you have to help? Let's say they're in that situation, because I know quite often when you have to do a sale like that, you try and help relocate people to different places, right?
Yeah, so I have, in 2 weeks, actually, Sean, my rental agent's going to come on and talk about how to get rentals after, like, there's been a bankruptcy or short sale. So if someone needs help being relocated, then, yeah, I have a team.
Uh-huh.
That's loud.
Yeah, that's, welcome to live radio.
I
Downtown.
I don't think that's ever happened when I've been here. But
I
No.
thought it was maybe a tornado siren.
No,
Oh,
no, we're good yet.
I would have been running. I would have been running for that one. They would have been like, oh, where's she going? Yeah, so.
Yeah, because I was wondering, because now you're stuck with two people that you have to try and figure. Yeah, I can just see how that would be dangerous.
It's hard.
Kudos
because,
to you.
Yeah,
girl.
sometimes they will, like I always say, and I'm sure it's the same thing for Laura, but it's neutral. Like, I don't want to hear the problem. I don't want you talking about her, and I told that to them, or vice versa. Like, I'm here neutral, just help you get
That's
the
great,
mortgage
though.
out of your name.
That's great.
And if they don't want to do that, then I'm just gonna say no. I can't help you.
And I think the way to sort of, like, if I have a client and I potentially want them both to see you because you have, you specialize in short sales, and I think that would be a good option for both parties. Even though I'm advocating for one client, I'm going to phrase it to the court or to the other attorney, hey, I happen to know this realtor that's great with short sales. I think we should send both parties to the person. And then you're sort of getting the other side on board before you just say to your client, go talk to this person and then come back and get your spouse to agree.
Well, I mean,
Then they're not
divorce
gonna-
is, like I said at the beginning, it's tough.
Yeah.
They're going through a lot as it is, and if they don't have the equity, or maybe they're already behind on their mortgage, it makes the situation even harder. So to
Right.
just pick out some realtor who doesn't know what's going on is not an ideal situation for them.
Right.
If they have kids, or it's just a lot of moving parts. Anyways.
And in a divorce situation, we need to be cognizant that we don't know everything, and we need to send them to the correct professionals who do. So, I don't know everything there is to know about foreclosures or short sales or that type of thing. So, I want to send them to someone who can give them the best information.
Yeah. So one of your questions you sent me was, when is real estate a marital asset? Did we answer that already? Because
No, not really.
Okay.
So real estate is a marital asset when it's acquired during the marriage. So any property acquired during the marriage is considered a marital asset, regardless of how it's titled. And real estate is a non-marital asset. It's kind of what makes some of these cases tricky if they acquired it prior to the marriage, or if it was purchased with a non-marital asset. So that's when when the cases start to get confusing. And let's say somebody had a condo before they were married, they sold it and got $10,000, and then they put $10,000 into a home they buy with their new spouse. What is that home now? A piece of marital property, or is it non-marital property?
Or is it 10 less of the marital property to split because that's how much he invested from prior
wow.
to the marriage?
See, I didn't know any of that.
There's no real black or white answer. It just totally depends on the very specific facts of the situation. But it can get very complicated, and especially if you then take the non-marital $10,000, put it into a home you're purchasing together, and you put both your names on it, it's presumed then that you just gifted
Assumptive,
that
yeah.
$10,000, right?
So what happens, like, let's just say someone is married and they buy a home, but the spouse, maybe they didn't have a job or didn't qualify, so the spouse is not on the mortgage or the title. Then what happens? But
But they bought it during the marriage?
Yeah, but he or she lives there, so.
So if anything that's acquired during the marriage is, regardless of whose name it's in, is still marital property.
Okay.
So the question comes in if you're using a source of funds that came from something premarital or non-marital.
Okay.
So if they're married and they buy a house together, but one of the parties has bad credit or something, or they just decide it's only going to go in one spouse's name, it's still a piece of marital property.
Yeah.
What if, I have a real quick question if you don't mind, what if there is a death in the family and an inheritance comes into play?
Oh.
Yeah,
And then-
so inheritances are
It's not family
non-marital
related.
property.
You're right.
Right,
hmm
right.
That's an interesting one too,
So
because I'm sure
that's-
that has happened. We've had that twice in our. I mean, luckily there was
So
no
wait,
divorce in
the
it, but
example. So you
So, like, if
inherited
my-
a house
no, so my father passed away, and I got inheritance, and I bought a house with that inheritance.
with your husband.
Right. No, I bought it. It was all in my name.
Oh.
I did it all
Yeah.
on my own. But it's still, so that technically could just be my house if I
Correct,
wanted it to.
correct.
Because I bought it with that inheritance.
Correct. But the problem comes in is if you then added your spouse's name to it. So then now you're kind of
Did you add your
Now
spouse?
I'm
Lee?
Changing the character.
now I'm admitting it that it is marital property when I add my spouse's name to it. Actually, I did it because I lived here and he lived in Wisconsin because we were or going back and forth. But then we ended up just refinancing, so we had to go through that effort of putting his name on it and everything in order to do that. Yeah, it wasn't for any specific reason, but I guarantee that's a situation that does come up because then that's not something that, even though the death may occur during the marriage, that's the inheritance is going to the individual. Usually in a will, it'll say, okay, this is going to one party. So the other person can't just come in and say, oh, no, now that's both of ours. You follow? You see what I'm
Yes,
saying?
and so
Yeah.
inheritances and gifts are non-marital property, even if you receive them while you're married.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah, see, I didn't know that. Like, this is a new topic for me. Like, I love learning new stuff.
Yeah,
so, like, I'm
for
pretty sure I could
sure.
sit here all night.
So if you inherit a home and there's a potential you're going to get divorced, just don't put the other person's name on it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to say that one more time?
Look at the phones. No.
Right?
If you have a question, you question going through a divorce, thinking, definitely
Well,
give us a
even,
call.
yeah, if you're sitting back like, I wonder what would happen, now's your time to do so. 847-931-1410. We've got Laura here. She can answer any of those out there. But, yeah, it's a good point. I think a lot of people probably have wonder that, especially the what-ifs that happen in a divorce anyway. There's a lot of what-ifs that go with it.
Absolutely. And ultimately, if they have a complex situation, they should consult with an attorney because everything is fact dependent, and my clients quickly learn as I'm consulting with them that there are no clear answers in divorce. Nothing is black and white. It all just depends.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is with the short sales.
Yeah, I'm sure.
It's every situation is different, and you have to really sit down and go over their financials and what happened in their plan and come up with a plan for them.
Right. So do you have a pretty good idea if they're qualified for a short sale
So,
upon meeting them?
yeah, I mean, I have an initial conversation with them ahead of time. Usually if they're going through a divorce, then that is technically considered a hardship. But, I just want to make sure that these people, like, I had someone call me years ago and were like, I stopped paying my mortgage because the taxes were too high on my property, and I got like $200,000 in my bank account. Can I do a short sale? Will you short sale my house? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to short sale your house because the bank's going to ask for bank statements.
Foiling the system.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
most people who come to me, they're going to qualify for a short sale. I can't remember the last time that didn't happen. You don't have to ask the bank. You just have to go through the process. So anyways, that was a quick first segment.
That was very
So we're
quick.
going to take a short break, check on the weather outside, and we'll be back.
Welcome back to Real Talk Elgin with real estate expert Heather Keller. Call 847-931-1410 and Heather will be happy to answer your questions about real estate. And now back to Studio 14 in downtown Elgin for more Real Talk Elgin with Heather Keller.
Welcome back. Before we talk more with Laura, who would like a free copy of my book, The Complete Guide to Selling Your Home as a Short Sale? So we do have it available hand copy or electronic. So if you go to our website, realtalkelgin.com, you can click on the...
I have the hand clapping, but you can't hear it.
Oh, I can't hear it. I know. We had to take off the headsets, which is very weird. I feel naked, honestly. But it's storming here, so
We're
if I'm
playing
talking
it
too
safe.
loud. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know. We're playing it
You're
safe.
good. You're
So
good.
anyways, free copy of my book. Go to realtalkelgin.com. At the corner, top right, you can click short sale booklet. It will take you to my website. You can fill out the form, and we would be happy to drop you off a copy, mail you a copy, or if you scroll all the way down, you can actually read it online. We do have an online version now, so that's great. It's essentially just the process of the short sale and how it works generally. Upcoming shows. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with Sean Israel. He is a Keller Williams Inspire agent as well, and he does all of my rentals. So he's been on the show before, but we wanted to talk again to our viewers about getting rentals. If you've had bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sales, it can be kind of tricky. And a lot of people actually think that they won't be able to get a rental, but that's actually not the case. So Sean's going to come on and we'll answer all of your questions there. And then I think a couple weeks after that, we're going to have our group, Illinois Financial Group, come on. 2 people at that point. And so we'll talk more about that show in 2 weeks. So again, if you haven't liked our page, please do. Real Talk Elgin on Facebook. I'm not huge Twitter and all that fan, so definitely go to Facebook. That's where we put all of our information. Any past shows you can listen to on realtalkelgin.com. And this podcast will be available in a couple days, so feel free to take a look. Again, if you have any questions, call in 847-931-1410. We are on for about another 20 minutes or so, so feel free to give us a call. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Okay, Laura, so I forgot where we ended with because we were talking about the storms, but I actually think we answered this question already, but one of your questions was, what if one spouse owned the home before the parties were married? We talked about that.
Yeah, so that's where we talked about non-marital property versus marital property.
Okay, good. Can I force my spouse to sell the house prior to the divorce being finalized?
So this is a question we get asked very frequently. When a party lives in the house and the other party potentially wants to force them to sell the house, but the divorce is not yet finalized, they ask, hey, can we go to court and ask the judge to force them to sell the house? So the short answer is yes, you can try to make that happen, but the reality is most judges won't do it. So most judges kind of want you to keep the status quo during the pendency of the divorce, keep the house, keep the asset intact, and then we'll deal with it when the divorce is finalized and basically decide, either agree or the judge will tell you what you're going to do with the house.
Oh,
so it's
interesting.
possible to ask that it be sold prior to the divorce, but we have found that it just very typically doesn't happen.
Okay, so normally if someone who's going through a divorce, you go through divorce, which I'm curious, how long does that take?
The divorce process?
Yeah, like how long is from start to finish?
So I would say it's a hard question to answer. It depends, like
Okay.
everything in divorce.
Yeah. Everyone says, how long does a short sale
Right.
take? And I'm like, well,
It depends.
short sale doesn't mean short time frame.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. It depends.
Right.
Sometimes
So
3 months, sometimes 2 years.
Exactly. So I would say an average divorce, especially a litigated divorce, is probably about a year. It also depends what county you're in. So if you're doing a Cook County divorce, the court dates are just further apart and it's going to take longer. I'd say the average there is probably more like 1.5 years, 2 years.
Wow.
And if you have parties who are very amicable and eager to get it done and motivated to get it done, I've divorced, a couple as soon as 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it can be, that's not the norm. But
What does that mean?
Does Illinois doesn't have the 6-month waiting period or anything like that
no,
to see if somebody
they
changes?
don't any longer. They
Oh,
just get rid of
interesting.
that. Right?
What was that?
And if both parties agree, then they don't need to wait the 6 months.
Nice. There used to be that once you filed for divorce, if it was granted, you had to wait. Well, you could file for it, but then you had to wait 6 months. And I think they would do that in case there would people that would get back together or whatever, reconcile. So they'd tell you have to wait 6 months before it'll be finalized.
The statute actually used to say you had to wait 2 years.
Holy
unless
Toledo.
They agreed, and then it could be 6 months.
Yeah.
I actually went to trial over that issue, which is very bizarre. It's such a basic issue. Years and years ago, that was
Wow.
the first divorce trial I ever did. Yes, but now if both parties agree, then they don't need to
Interesting.
wait. It does depend what county you're in. So in Will County, for example, their local rule does require you to wait 30 days after filing. But that's not typically an issue. It can take that long.
Good to know.
I know, right? Anyone out there? What about Kane County? Wait, is this
Right.
Kane County or is this
Yeah,
Cook?
it's Kane.
Yeah, this is Kane.
Kane
Do you know
County.
Kane?
Oh
Do you-
yeah.
Yeah.
We practice in Kane.
Okay.
So we have our office a small office in St. Charles, and so and we have a couple attorneys that live out here, so we do quite a bit of Kane County too.
Interesting.
So what's
Yeah.
STG? Do you want to throw a phone number out there really quick since
yeah,
you're
why
mentioning
don't
your
you-
location?
I'm so like intrigued with all this information. I
She's
forgot
like, 2
to-
weeks.
So why don't you give? I try to give you tell them your contact information, and then we'll try to do it one last
sure.
time.
Well, I'll just give out my cell phone. It's the easiest, which my phone number is 847-772-7913. You can feel free to text me, call me, feel free to email me. My email is Laura, Laura, @stglaw.com. And STG stands for Sullivan Taylor Gumina, who are the Maureen Sullivan Taylor is the founder of our firm, and Julie Gumina is one of the shareholders, and now we're actually technically Sullivan Taylor Gumina and Palmer, and Rafe Palmer is also one of the shareholders.
Wow. Okay, did you get all that? Did you get her email?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
I
did.
gave you a lot of information.
We're going to throw it out there again real quickly. 847-772-7913, or it's Laura at stglaw.com.
Correct.
Yeah, good job. Okay, so maybe we remind everyone at the end about the...
We'll put it up on Facebook.
Okay, perfect.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's talk more. Like, I loved all the questions that you sent because this is, even though I've dealt with so many divorces, that's typically one of the bigger hardships when it comes to a short sale, but I don't know a lot about it. So let's talk about another question. What if both parties want to keep the home, which we talked about this before we came on air, or was that on there? It wasn't on air. So let's talk about that. If they both want to keep the house, how do you go about that?
So first try to negotiate. And the problem comes in if they just end up not being able to come to some sort of agreement, then the court would order the house to be sold if they both wanted to keep it. There is one sort of rare concept, and it's called bird nesting. I've never actually had a case, but I've seen it done, and I've heard other attorneys have these cases where the parties would agree to basically the house will be where the kids live, and the parents would rotate in and out of the house.
Oh, so they both don't live there full time? Okay. Yeah, that's a no.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it keeps the kids in an environment that they're used to.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's one benefit.
Hard on the parents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of situations where both parties will keep the home maybe until, their junior in high school goes to college or something like that. So they will put in their agreement, we'll keep the home for the next 18 months, and this is how it will get paid, and then we'll agree to sell it. I think it's a good idea to, have something in there
A
as
plan.
to kind of what will happen if things don't go, exactly, and things don't go according to their plan. So, if there's no agreement at some point in time, that the home will just be sold.
Understand? Yeah, I get it. I mean, for both of them to really keep the house is probably not going to happen. Either the one keeps it, and then they have to refinance to get their spouse off of title. Really, that's the only way to go about it. Otherwise, they would have to sell.
Right.
Yeah.
And if they, if they're thinking, oh, we can just own this asset together, the reality is, well, you're getting divorced. So are you really going to be able to maintain this asset together? Do you really want to be tied to the other person? In all likelihood, it's probably not a good idea.
Huh. Interesting. So the case, you said, back to your previous question, to sell the house prior to the divorce, like the situation I have coming up this weekend, it is a short sale. They're both wanting to sell and get off the title before the divorce is done.
Okay, yes,
So then that's
definitely.
okay.
Yes. So more so I meant that the court likely isn't going to force a sale.
Okay.
They might view it as premature if they haven't settled all of the, other issues in the case. But in the event the parties agree to sell the house prior to the divorce, absolutely, and that is done.
And then so the property is no longer the asset,
right?
And then that's something,
just
one
not
less thing you have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Or the divorce decree would simply say they had a house, but it's been sold and the proceeds have already been divided.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, how is the value of real estate determined in a divorce? So you had that question, and I know these are frequently asked questions that I asked Laura to prepare prior to the show. And so then you had bullet points that says, how is it determined if one party buys the other out? How is it determined if the home is ordered to sell? So I guess we kind of covered that
Yeah,
one.
so if the home is ordered sold, it's just the proceeds after closing costs.
So if it's
would be
ordered
the value.
sold, but it has to be, the divorce has to be finalized first, right? And then it's ordered to sell, so they sell it after it's been finalized?
Yeah, or maybe a sale is pending at the time they get divorced.
Okay.
And you would just sort of want to spell out in your agreement what kind of the status of that is at the time you're getting divorced. So either, there's currently a sale pending and this is what will happen when it sells, or the parties will agree that after they get divorced, they're going to list the property, and that's where they might mention a realtor they're going to use. So it's nice to spell all that out before they get in an argument.
Kind of covers
over
your
what it
tail
is.
Yeah.
before you sign on the dotted
Right.
line, the
Yeah.
fine line.
So this just popped up in my head, but I have a question. So what has been your craziest case before? So maybe has anyone ever had 100 properties that they had to sell off between the two
Multiple
of them?
properties. Think
I'm
about
just
that if they
curious,
have multiple properties. Yeah.
What's some?
Well, I haven't had a really crazy case when it comes to real estate.
Okay.
But I've had some crazy cases when it comes to personal property, and those are just items. I mean, I've seen situations where somebody's arguing over a bottle of liquor that they got on vacation 10 years ago, or
Really?
So yeah, I mean those are kind of the bizarre ones because they're paying a lot of money to their attorneys to argue, but they mean a lot to those people, right? So they have some sort of emotional connection to these things.
Interesting.
So typically when they have when there's a lot of real estate involved, those aren't really the crazier cases. Those are just more the kind of financial, we kind of have to put this together and figure out the best financial.
People don't realize, in a divorce situation, one party, especially if it's a very hostile divorce, one party will sneak out and just watch every movement that what the other party does, hoping that it's going to do something to benefit them in the divorce settlement.
Right.
It's crazy.
Most of the times it doesn't.
No.
So.
And they're just wasting all this time.
Yeah.
I had this, actually a lot of my cases are divorce. I had this divorce case. It took me almost 2 years to complete this short sale. So they were already divorced when I came into the picture. I'm not exactly sure what the divorce decree said. I don't think it gave one of them direction because I had to deal with them both. But they did not like each other very much, so I dealt with them separately. Well, he was, driving past the house, trying to, then texting me, oh, she's doing this. And I'm just like, I got to stay neutral. So she ended up moving out of the house. So then we had a vacant house. And, she didn't have the utilities on. It was just a really hot mess. So they had 2 mortgages on this property. And then he ended up, during the process, passing away. So so they were married. They bought the house when they were married. They got a divorce. Then they were also in bankruptcy. And then we had to sell it. So he passed away during the process of selling as a short sale.
Wow.
So then we had to negotiate both mortgages. And we were almost completed with the process and realized that there was a roof, mechanical lien from the roof on the title, which had to be taken care of before. I did end up closing on that one, but it was really crazy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Super complicated.
Divorce cases with real estate it's definitely tough, but you have to have, and I always stress this, have a game plan in place, but you have to also have the right team around you.
Yes, absolutely.
Someone like Laura who understands the ins and outs of divorce, whether you're doing litigation or mediation. And then if you're going through a short sale, hire an expert. Like traditional sale, you can find a realtor really anywhere. But if you are behind on payments or that you're going to be because maybe, one of the spouses has left or whatever the case may be,
right.
To have a a plan in place.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I think it was one of the questions I sent you was what type of professional should be involved.
Oh, yes, it is.
right?
Let's talk about that one. Okay.
So I can name drop our group that you already discussed, which is the Illinois Financial Group, which is just a team of professionals that we know provide good service because none of us individually can do it all, right? I'm not an expert in real estate. You're not an expert in divorce law.
Yeah.
So when I have a client come in who has a complicated real estate issue or a potential short sale, then I'm going to right away say, you need to talk to Heather. And another professional I often recommend they see is a financial advisor, because someone comes in and says, well, I have to keep the house. Do you really want to keep the house? And can you really afford to keep the house is the biggest question.
Yeah. So the Illinois Financial Group, two of the guys, Robert and Henry, they're going to come on the show in, I think it's a month, 2 weeks after Sean comes on. And that's the group that we're all a part of. So they're all professionals. We're bringing on another real estate attorney. And then we have Laura, and there's a whole bunch of other ones.
Business valuator, an accountant, etc.
So that's important to have like a group of people that we all trust and we can send refer them
absolutely.
out.
Right.
So,
and at our firm, we have a lot of connections in the area of, people in different fields, and we like to provide our clients with a team of people so that as they're navigating through the divorce process, they kind of know what their next step is once the divorce is finalized, whether it is that they need to talk to a realtor or whether it is they need to go talk to an estate planning attorney. Or that type of thing.
I think that's a good question to have when somebody is going to get a divorce. Whoever you look to as being your attorney, make sure that they have that team. Ask them, do you have a team around you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And some people going through a divorce will still be in a financially good spot. Unfortunately, others will not. My parents got a divorce growing up, and it was a hot mess, and
so they're going to need help not only during the divorce
process,
but
after
the
maybe
process.
Therapy, or in some cases, some people may have to file for bankruptcy. So we got it all here.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, so you definitely want to look for someone that has people they can refer you to and who's going to recognize that, hey, I'm not the one you need to talk to about this. You need to go talk to this.
So when someone's interviewing or, calling around about a divorce attorney, that's a good question that they should ask. Are there any other good questions that they should ask when they're trying to find a divorce attorney?
I would ask them what their approach is, and in the sense that do they seem to be kind of hardcore litigators, just wanting to take your case to trial, or are they more so going to do some sort of cost-benefit analysis of your case, where you kind of want someone who's practical and realistic, who isn't afraid to tell you, hey, sure, you might want to go after this car that's only worth this much, but you're going to spend this much to get there, so just don't do it.
It may not be worth it.
Let's just try to get it done, right?
Yeah, I think that's important, because people who are going through tough times, divorce, short sale, whatever it may be, I think their brain isn't all fully there.
Yeah,
so
they're very emotional, right?
It's an emotional process. So you just have to ask the right questions. The same thing when, not everyone in Chicagoland's going to use me to, for a short sale. So I always say, if you're going to hire someone for a short sale, just interview them. And you got to ask them specific questions like, how many have you done? Can you show me the ones you are done? What are you doing currently?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if they show you that they've only done 2 short sales, then that's a red flag for you to take a hike.
Exactly.
You need someone in the profession who specializes in that, and that can really get it done. Because I'll tell you what, like with your divorce cases, it is a depend. It's always depend.
Right.
You just don't know, and every case is different. So you really have to help them navigate through that process: divorce, bankruptcy, short sale, financial, whatever it may be, to help them move on to the next chapter. So,
and the owner of our firm just wrote a book called "I Just Want This Done." Yeah, which
I Just Want This Done.
Yes.
Can you get it on Amazon?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So it's
just
by Rayford Palmer.
Okay.
And the book goes through these very things, so kind of the practical aspects of divorce and what to look for, what questions to ask. So, highly recommend it.
Did you read it? Yeah.
Yeah.
They probably
well, partially. Not.
Okay.
Don't tell him that.
But listen,
it just
you
came
have
out,
two little kids.
It just
so.
came out a few weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I've been on maternity leave. But believe me, I fully plan to read the entire
It's
thing.
not a bedtime story.
Yeah.
I know.
Exactly.
I hear you. Yeah. That's good. So hopefully maybe some of our viewers can pick that up.
Yeah.
And yeah. So like I said, good to have a team around, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So what if the parties own multiple properties, which we talked about already. So you just
Right.
have to go through every
Yeah,
situation
so
is different.
basically each asset, you want to, determine what the value is and determine what the parties are going to do with that asset. So if I've had cases where they own a couple of investment properties, and the parties have decided, I'll take this one, you take that one, or others have said, this spouse is really the investor type. I wasn't really into this, so they can just be awarded those properties, and the assets get offset.
And then they
elsewhere.
would just, like we said, refinance, correct?
Right, exactly,
Okay.
to remove
Yeah.
their name if
Yeah.
necessary.
Understandable.
Yeah.
And then you have somebody on your team that you could send them to for the refinance to get them
Yes.
to the next
Yes.
step.
Yes.
So you keep it all under one house, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
that's how, I'm trying to think. That's how we met, was through the financial group. I was added to the group. Was it? Oh, I'm trying to think. Sorry, this year has
I know
gone by fast.
I lost all
I
sense
think
of
it
time
was
being on leave. So
In January, because I
Yeah,
think
it's
I had
been a
just
while.
come home from our trip, and it was then. It was
Yeah.
like February, I
Yeah.
think. So
I think so too.
we just meet on Zoom every month and talk about business and how we can
the
help.
plan
so.
is to meet in person when we're able to.
Yeah, but I think there's something about, and just for the listeners out there, I think there's something that's very powerful to the fact when you have a good, strong team behind you or around you, surrounding you, because you're right, not everybody knows that. And I think when you mention you're getting a divorce, you don't really know to look out for your best interest.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure it talks about that in the book. There's a lot going on. So when I know that Laura is going to say, you're going to probably lean towards a short sale, I've got somebody for you. There's
Yes.
something that's got great street cred to that, if I'm just coming at it
Absolutely.
cold and not knowing where to go.
And that's actually
Absolutely.
where a lot of my business comes from. I
Sure.
don't do a ton of marketing anymore because I just have these great relationships with attorneys, and most people like how I handle the short sales. I mean, I do traditional stuff too, but I have to be honest, I like the short sales.
You prefer the short
yeah.
sales.
So that
Can I ask you why?
so yeah, you can ask me why. Everyone asks me that because they're like, there's so much work, but I'm very detailed and very organized. I mean, so like I just became the new PTO president at my kid's school, and I printed off this binder of like all this, someone's probably listening and gonna laugh at me, but like all this binder of like notes and events, and it's all organized, and
She's probably got it scheduled for the 2022 school year.
oh yeah, like I'm like meeting with the principal tomorrow to talk about our PTO meeting for the next week. So, but I'm just really organized. My business is the same way. I have a to-do list. I every week go over each deal. I like the short sales because, when you get into a career, have you ever read the book Started With Why?
No.
So it's like, these people who make change. Like I'm here to hopefully not change the world, but you try, each time you help with someone, it can change your life. And so for me, I go about it as not like what I'm doing, but why. Like I'm doing this because I'm super passionate
I like that.
about helping families move on to the next chapter of their lives. That is the best feeling ever.
That's your reward.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the way that you have to navigate, and it's probably the same thing for you, Laura, but navigate through these different deals. Are we coming to an end? Because I can't hear. I can't hear anything.
I'm just listening to you passionately.
Okay. It's just, I like how you have to be organized. Now,
Yes.
short sales really haven't been around this year because of everything in place. However, they're now starting
They
to
will,
slowly
yeah.
come back. So I think in 2022 is when, we'll be super busy. So that, we're coming to an end. So why don't you tell the viewers again your contact information?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm Laura Baldwin, STG Divorce Law. My cell phone number, feel free to text or call, is 847-772-7913. My email is Laura, Laura, at stglaw.com.
Thank you, Laura, for coming on the show.
Thank
We'll
you
be
so
back in
much for
2
having
weeks
me.
with Sean. Bye.